This is the Iron Sharpens Iron movement, sharing insights into the power of people-centric leading.
Hi, this is Jim, and today we welcome to our tribe a self-taught entrepreneur who turned a product idea into a multi-million-dollar business. Now she shares with us her simple yet powerful breath and mindfulness tools that empower people to create their optimal energy for success and wellness, one deep, mindful breath at a time. This is Sandy Abrams. Iron Sharpens Iron movement is brought to you by N2 Growth, a leader in executive search, leadership development, and talent management. We find and develop the world's best leaders. Learn more about our practice by visiting us at n2growth.com or click on the link in the show notes of this podcast. Sandy, welcome to the Iron Sharpens Iron movement. Our tribe of leaders, followers, mentors are absolutely dying to hear what you've got to say today. You are right in the sweet spot of what really gets our tribe excited, and we are happy to have you here today, so welcome.
Thank you so much, Jim. I'm thrilled to be with you.
I tell you, I've seen so much of your work lately on LinkedIn in particular, a lot of the articles that you have written, and you are someone that I have been hoping that I could get on our podcast because I think you've got a lot of value to bring to this audience for sure. And I'd love to kind of start off with, hey, you're a serial entrepreneur. You're out there in the business world and you were getting it done with all different types of products and verticals. How did you even get into the world of breathing and mindfulness?
Well, first of all, thank you for those kind words. And likewise, I love what you do and how you inspire people. I came to breath and mindfulness, or came to the focus on it now, because as a longtime entrepreneur, thankfully, I've always utilized the power of breath and mindfulness to keep me sane, really, because as an entrepreneur, it really is a roller coaster ride. And I started my first business in 1993, but thankfully I started yoga back in 1989. So 30 years of doing yoga, and I'm not wired for sitting still and breathing and being mindful. It's really was like the last thing on my radar when I started doing yoga. I loved the rigorous practice of it. But it turned out that my aha moment with yoga was the power of the breath. And what I saw just a few years ago was this tipping point that we had all hit a wall, sort of that digital wall, a tipping point with technology. We were starting to burn out after 10 years of sort of addicted to our devices. And so I started to share my thoughts on the power of breath and mindfulness in business and in life. And that's what led to my new book, Breathe to Succeed, because there's simple tools that people can do in small moments throughout every day.
So when you say you weren't wired, were you the classic entrepreneur? You type A, you were up 20 hours a day trying to get it done and all of those kind of things, and you were just constantly leaning forward and you finally found your escape?
Yes, definitely type A. But I love what I do. So I've always been driven and sort of probably ADD, but never really, knew what that was. And so, yeah, a combination of ADD and impulsive and just one of those people that was curious and creative and driven. Yeah.
So before we get into the meat and potatoes that I think everybody's going to listen to, was it because of your entrepreneurial mindset that although you didn't come from a background of neurophysiology or any other things that would be, the study of this breathing and mindfulness necessarily, was it kind of, your mindset to just say, look, I have something of value that I can give to others, and I'm willing to take that big step and expose myself in a way by writing a book and by reading and writing these articles and all of those kind of things. I mean, what drove you to have the guts in a way to say, I do have the authority to speak from this? I have a point of view that I want people to know.
It's a great question. I wrote a book in 2010 called Your Idea Inc. It was my first book, and it was to help other people like me who were outside of the business sector to help first-time entrepreneurs turn a product idea into a business.
Huh.
And that took me onto sort of a speaking circuit at different women's entrepreneurial events and partnering with small business conferences and that type of thing. And what happened was when I would talk about small business and entrepreneurial life, I started, maybe if my talk was an hour long, I would spend 10 minutes on how I utilize the power of breath and mindfulness to create the best mindset for me to always sort of be in the right frame of mind to constantly deal with the ups and downs of entrepreneurial life. And soon that was all anyone was interested in hearing about. And they were like, after you do a talk and people stand in line to give you their feedback, everyone was like, wait, tell me more about that breath thing. What do you mean by that? And that's when I realized I did have something else in me that I really felt called to share. And I became obsessed with yoga, and I did go through yoga teacher training in 1995, but really just to take that deeper dive. And so I have absolutely, as you mentioned, zero background in science or neuroscience or whatever, but the timing right now is fantastic because there's so much up to the minute science about the power of breath now that it's like, all of that is being done for me. So I can just say, yes, go read this book or go listen to this expert on neuroscience or the power of breath. But here are tools that I have used for 30 years and I know they work. I may not know exactly how, but I know they work. And so that's been enough.
And I think that's a great point, because that is the reality of today. Knowledge is kind of commoditized now, right? Like, it is out there, it is for everybody to experience and all that. But very few people take that knowledge and put it in certain containers that are digestible, that make sense, that have a method to them, that people can really realize this. So you don't have to be the world's leading neuroscience to talk about this stuff. You just have come up with the way to apply it, and it works. And you have the science to back you on that, which I love that kind of technique for sure.
Thank you.
Sandy, I got to ask you, because I think this is what drives a lot of listeners to a program like this too. Is so after, you only spend 10 minutes of the hour talking about breath, but then everybody comes and talks to you about breathing and not necessarily, your business discussion that you had. Don't you find it in your work today that the main reason why there was a line of people saying, hey, teach me more about this breathing thing, is because the world of business, the world of education, the world of, getting your entrepreneurial or your corporate experiences are almost normalized now. Like everybody's doing them at a certain pace. Everybody, to your point, at too fast of a pace, but everybody's doing those things. And now everyone's looking in the mirror and going, what about me? Like the human, how do I control this? And then senior executives are going, how can I help my people? Because it isn't just sending them to the latest and greatest business school. It's not sending them off to this. It's how do I start connecting the human being back to this person, the most important asset that I have. Have you found that to be true, that people need to have, they've got all these stressors outside of them, but they really just need connection to themselves?
It's so true. And it's just all because of technology. Technology revolutionized the way that we work. And it's been a long time now. And so we are suffering the consequences of that constantly connected lifestyle. So yes, leadership looks different today. It means leading mindfully, and it means being aware of putting the health of your teams as a priority. We can't expect people to be available 24/7, 365, and expect them to perform at that optimal level. We need to all be more self-aware of when we need to unplug, disconnect, reconnect with ourselves, and then come back to work feeling more focused and energized and creative and productive.
Yeah, we're still wired in a very primal way. We are still a primal caveman, cave woman type of person, for 99.9% of how we've developed. And it's these things that are at the most primitive levels that we've forgotten about, that really help synchronize what our systems are designed to operate as, our human bodies. There's no
Yes,
doubt.
exactly. And I feel like we should address the fact that we are in the middle of this pandemic and the work from home aspect of everything, and that we're spending even more time. So my book came out in 2019, and it was really as an antidote for technology. And now, a year later, it's even more relevant because of digital overwhelm and all of the virtual meetings that we're doing. And so it's really even more important that we become more mindful of, the humanity, and also the shift in perspective about, this is a difficult and challenging time for people, and leadership requires compassion and empathy. And we're all entrepreneurs by default right now. I like to say, because we all were forced to sort of create our own ecosystem with this work from home situation. And so we've all learned how to sort of try to set up a system that works in our homes, and works with everyone else that it might be living at home and going to school from home and all of that. So this is a whole new environment that is sort of the startup phase of a new way of, are we working from home or are we living at work?
Oh, so true. I love that statement, by the way. I might have to steal that. It's so true. It's, Sandy, so a lot of my guests on this podcast in the past have talked about how to become a better leader through different ways. And of course, as the iron sharpens iron movement, kind of, we all rally around human-centric leading and all of those little aspects. And we all talk about, the power to be either a victim or a victor, right? And how you can control a lot of your own destiny. One of the things that I love about you is that you have ultra focused really some of the most powerful events that you can do by yourself, for yourself, that can instantly change how you feel and act and see the perspectives of life and all of that. And it's breath work. And, so with your yoga background, and you started to decide that, man, the power of breathing was something that centered you. Can you talk to me a little bit about kind of the background of breathing even? I mean, if you can give us the 101 of, okay, so she's written a book about breathing. Everybody breathes all day long. How can that actually change my life?
I love that question. Thank you for asking. Yes. So I was known when I first started taking yoga classes, I was known as the girl who left yoga class right before Shavasana. And Shavasana, for those people listening who don't take yoga, is the last pose in a yoga class where you just lie still for like 3 to 5 minutes. And I couldn't take it. That made me anxious. So I left. And
Huh.
I got called out for that. And my teachers started to explain, like, just please give it a try. Breath is the most important pose in yoga. And that's where I had my aha moment with the power of just 3 deep breaths. And so for the first time, one time when I took these 3 deep breaths, I felt what I understood that they were talking about. I felt this grounded, centered feeling of empoweredness that I had never, ever felt before in my life. And it made me curious. So that's when I decided to take that power of breath off the mat and into my life. So
Mm.
the practical applications of it are super simple. Like how would you feel if before you made that phone call or that had that difficult conversation, or before you made a pitch for fundraising. What if you closed your eyes and you took just 3 deep breaths and you visualized yourself having that successful interaction? Or what if you did a lion's breath, which is a kind of breath that like gets rid of any negative energy immediately? And so I started playing with those tools and using them in different practical applications for business. So the bottom line is really how we think and feel is a choice. And sometimes that choice is really lost these days because we get on autopilot mode when we're just connected to our devices all the time.
You bet.
But right. And when we are connected all the time, what happens is, and in today's time of high stress, also, we tend to hold our breath or we breathe in that autopilot, just shallow breath. Like you said, yeah, people know how to breathe already. Yes, but we're not breathing in the optimal way to create your best mindset and energy. So, for example, breathing through your nose on the inhale, like let's do it right now. Like just
Okay.
take a long deep inhale through your nose. What happens is now you're connected to the part of your brain that regulates emotion. So it's up to you to tell your brain, your mind, and your body how you want to feel. So maybe I tell myself on that inhale, I'm calm. And you can repeat that a couple times. And then on the exhale, you let go of everything else that is not that energy that you want to manifest. And you start to create, you start to choose how you want to think and feel in micro moments throughout the day. And then that helps you be more mindful, be more present. And then it's not all woo woo yoga, living in your head. What
Yeah.
happens is then you start to have that optimistic and confident mindset so that then you turn that into strategic action and you do what I call you breathe your goals to life. So you've created this mindset
Huh.
and energy that then translates into strategic action to make things happen, create opportunities and shift your perspective and be successful.
So I've got to ask you before we keep going, on the exhale, was
Mhm.
that through your mouth or through your nose?
Good question. You can do it either through your nose or mouth on the exhale, but it's inhaling that it's critical that comes through your nose because there is not that connection to the brain if you're inhaling through your mouth. And
Okay.
also there is there's a lot of health benefits also for maintaining inhaling as much as possible through the nose. There's a lot of health benefits for that. And so like 99.9% of my breath tools, you're inhaling through your nose and you can exhale through your nose or mouth, whichever feels better.
Awesome. So, and by the way, I was doing that exercise as you were talking. So the timing is perfect. As you were
Good.
talking, I was able to get 3 very deep breaths in and with an exhale and all of that. So
Yeah,
your pace is incredible. That's
I
great.
love it.
So you said most people, I think everybody's going to agree on this, kind of walking through life on autopilot, right? You're breathing on autopilot. You're kind of walking through life on autopilot. What are some suggestions that you have that are kind of like triggers? Like I can imagine, especially let's put someone that's listening on here that's the old grumpy senior executive,
Mhm.
right? You already said, hey, it's not just la la, yoga stuff and it's foo foo and all that. These are real things that can affect every human being that's out there, despite their age, sex, color, creed, all that stuff. These are just human things. But there's probably a ton of naysayers, and there's probably a ton of people that would listen to this and go, wow, Sandy, that was very interesting, and then just move on. What are some ways to kind of be deliberate in finding a trigger point? Are there certain points in a day that you would recommend? Are there certain events that you would recommend? Anything like that as a trigger?
Oh, wow. There's so many answers to that question.
Oh, okay.
Because really, there's never a bad time to stop and go inward. And so, like, morning is a super powerful time to start the day with some mindful breath and set your intentions and review your priorities. And just take a few moments to make your inhales and exhales longer than the normal shallow breathing. The optimal length, by the way, for an inhale and exhale to be considered a deep breath is 6 seconds. 6 seconds on the inhale.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And 6 seconds on the exhale. So it is quite different from what most people do all day long. But the beauty about breath is that, again, you can shift and transform your energy and mindset in just 90 seconds. So easy ways to start integrating the power of breath in small moments is maybe set your phone for 3 times a day and just remember to maybe stop, sit down, close your eyes, take 3 deep breaths. I suggest starting with 3 deep breaths because that's enough. Like for me, that's all I used for many years before I started experimenting with all these other different breath tools. So you
Yeah.
can, and also attach it to other things that you're doing during the day so that this cranky executive who says he has no time to do anything else, maybe every time he is walking to the elevator or up the
Yeah.
stairs or filling the water bottle or getting a cup of coffee, that's also the time that you decide to take 3 deep breaths. So you attach it to other habits that you have during the day and it becomes second nature. And also, just to note that in my book, Breathe to Succeed, I have pop ups throughout the book called It's Science. And I do just scratch the surface of the science behind the power of breath because breath really is the most underutilized tool, I feel, for both wellness and success. And so I share quotes from the experts in the neuroscience and, so you do get you understand that if you breathe in a certain way, even if you're reluctant to do that, your brain, your mind, your body does the heavy lifting for you. So if you breathe in a way that will, for example, making your exhale twice as long as your inhale brings on a feeling of calm and relaxation. So if you inhale through your nose to the count of 4, let's do that now. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you exhale slowly through your nose or mouth to a count of 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you repeat that for 90 seconds or 2 minutes or whatever. The science behind that is it works. It taps into your parasympathetic nervous system and you will feel a sense of calm. And so it's almost like you don't have to do anything else except breathe in a certain way. And that's the way your body works. And so that's why there's a breath for every energy. There, breathing and breath work is not just for zoning out and feeling chill and zen and relaxed. There's also breaths that make you feel more confident and more empowered and ready to kill the day and slay the day.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a breath for every energy that you want to manifest.
So you've mentioned these pop-ups that have validated science behind it and all that, and you just talked about parasympathetic. I always remember parasympathetic with parachute, slow down kind of thing, all of that as a part of the anatomic nervous system. Look at me bringing out the science all of a sudden.
Love it.
And I've have tidbits of it through my life and through embracing resiliency, and breathing is one of the aspects that they go through on different resilience courses and all that, but certainly not to this depth. And it's an incredible thing. I think it's a powerful thing to remind people that this isn't something that's a theory. This isn't somebody's, good idea of the moment. This isn't just the latest fad. That through functional MRI and through other science, you have been able to point to the science behind what really happens when you breathe in these different types of ways.
Exactly. You want me to read you one pop-up that's in the very beginning of the book?
Sure, I would love it.
Okay. It says, in an article titled Neuroscientists Have Identified How Exactly a Deep Breath Changes Your Mind, Morgan Cerf of Kellogg School of Management, Northwestern University says, breathing at different paces or paying careful attention to breaths were shown to engage different parts of the brain. Humans' ability to control and regulate their brain is unique, i.e., controlling emotions. These abilities are not trivial. When breathing changed with the exercises, the brain changed as well. The findings provide neural support for advice individuals have been given for millennia. During times of stress or when heightened concentration is needed, focusing on one's breathing or doing breathing exercises can indeed change the brain.
That's so powerful. And don't you find yourself sometimes wanting to get on the highest mountaintop and just start yelling this to everybody who's not getting it? Because it's not, you don't need $1,000 a pill drug. You don't need to go into deep therapy. You don't need to fire your entire staff if they're underperforming. How about you get in a room and start talking about this?
I love that. It's exactly how I feel. And breath, especially today in these uncertain times, breath levels the playing field for well-being. It's accessible to everyone. It's free. It's available 24/7, 365. It's always accessible. It always delivers. It always works. And so, yes, it is so simple that it seems silly sometimes. And it's also so simple, yet so powerful.
It's pretty neat that when you were reading that quote and you were talking like, this breathing has the ability for humans to change their emotions and how that's connected. And, emotions to me equals energy. Emotion is energy, and it depends on how you expel that energy. Is it positive energy, negative energy, neutral energy, all of those kind of things directly related to emotion, which, as you've just talked about, directly related to breath. It boggles my mind, Sandy, sometimes that when I do executive coaching and you get into a boardroom, say, and they're like, we're underperforming. We can't figure it out, our senior executives are all over the place. And you ask them simple questions like, have you paid attention to your sleep patterns? Do you breathe correctly? Do you know what heart rate variability is? And have you tracked it among your senior executives? They look at me like I have three heads.
Yes, you have a lot of work to do out there. It's true. It's true. And so that's why I love what you do. And helping to build that self-awareness at the top, at leadership is really, really important so that when they become self-aware of how they're thinking and feeling, then yes, then maybe they'll have that aha moment of, oh, okay, if I can, change this and be more mindful, then you connect better with your teams. You engage more, you're more compassionate, you're more empathetic. And in fact, I'll read you one more pop up about self-awareness, which I thought was really interesting. Okay, so it says in a Harvard Business Review article titled What Self-Awareness Really Is and How to Cultivate It, organizational psychologist Tasha Eurich says self-awareness seems to have become the latest management buzzword, and for good reason. Research suggests that when we see ourselves clearly, we are more confident and more creative. We make sounder decisions, build stronger relationships, and communicate more effectively. We are better workers who get more promotions, and we're more effective leaders with more satisfied employees and more profitable companies. Right?
Amen. And what's interesting about that, when you were talking, I kind of chuckled because self-awareness is obviously a major buzzword today. And I use the word self-awareness when I give like personality assessments. And when someone is very self-aware of their personality, right? They realize who they are. There's no rights or wrongs about your personality. It's your personality, right? But when you're aware of it, then you know how to control it a little bit more. But what's interesting is you could have a horrible baseline personality trait, be very aware of it, and still be a horrible person, right? You're just aware that you've got a bad trait. The way that you just defined out of that HBR article, self-awareness, is you could still have this kind of dysfunctional personality, but now practice self-awareness about yourself and really truly understand what some of your actions are doing, and the cause and effect of everything. That's
Yes.
amazing clarity, and thank you for sharing that pop-up for sure.
You're welcome. And that's where breath comes in, is once you are more self-aware of how you're thinking, how you're feeling, how you're interacting with other people, that's where breath comes in. You can shift it, you can change it, you can create something new, something better.
It's just amazing to me. You have all these businesses out there, and each business is looking for the competitive advantage. But almost every senior executive has about the same amount of education and training and experiences. They all are about equal. These are the things that make the difference. This is what makes truly a good leader, a good follower, an employee, all of those things. This is what makes high performing organizations, are these very small details that completely change your life.
It's so true. And isn't it interesting that today a lot of big corporations now have chief mindfulness officers, chief
Yes.
well-being officers? VaynerMedia now, well, actually for 4 years, Claude Silver has been their chief heart officer.
Ha,
So there's a reason that companies are making this into a full-time position, because it's important. And dealing with technology all the time, it really is critical that we find ways to connect to the human side again as well.
absolutely. And for everybody that's kind of on the hook now, listening, they're waiting for your next bit of advice, your next tidbit. Let's just spend a few minutes about your book itself. Who was the intended audience that you wrote it for?
Well, I guess I wrote it originally sort of for other entrepreneurs like myself, because it's funny, when I first had my product idea, and this is way back 1993, I went to the bookstore and I bought a few books about how to start your own business. I have a broadcasting and journalism degree. I knew nothing about business, or and so I had designed a product for the bath and body industry, and I was going to start marketing it. And these books were way over my head. They were written by MBAs and professors, and they used all this business lingo that I just didn't understand. I returned those books and I bought Tony Robbins and Deepak Chopra, and I realized that if I had the right mindset and I had the confidence, I could teach myself how to build a business. And so I realized that I wrote this book for other people like myself, like entrepreneurs, people who want to create their own opportunities in life, and how to utilize the power of breath for wellness and success. And it turns out that it's not only helpful for your business, it's also helpful for life and for parenting and for relationship building and people skills. And so it turns out that and my publisher had said, "Oh, I think the corporate sector will really appreciate this book." And I thought, I don't know. I mean, I've never worked a day in my life in corporate. I don't know how to speak that language. And it turns out now, I'm speaking at a lot of big corporate companies. And
Hmm.
the publisher was right, but it really is for people who want to feel better and want to be aware of the choice that you make at any moment throughout the day about how you're thinking and how you're feeling.
And I think, I let this moment pass when you brought it up to begin, and I'll circle back around. Is, the COVID environment has fundamentally changed the vast majority of how the people see the world and act in the world and behave in the world every single day. And, you know, I am someone that works out of the house normally. Always been in a virtual environment for the last few years, so COVID didn't impact that. But the lack of travel, I'm a travel addict. I love traveling everywhere, and now without being able to travel, and now without kind of the normal things of going to the favorite restaurant, all of those things are stressors that are attacking me from every angle. And I can just imagine someone that doesn't embrace resilience at a high level or has not been exposed to it at a high level in the past. This has got to be one of those things that you can just raise your hand and say, "Hey, everybody, my name is Sandy, and I have an escape route for you. They have a way that can really bring you back down to earth and kind of reduce this stress that's just kind of overhanging like a gray cloud to all of us.
Yes, I'm trying. I'm trying to be a vocal advocate for breath because you're exactly right. I mean, this is a really challenging time, and we are all limited in all of our freedoms. And for a while, I mean, for example, locally, our beaches were closed. I live in Southern California, close to the beach, and that's where I go to connect with myself and nature. And it's sort of my antidote to technology every day. And there were several weeks where we were not allowed to walk on the beach. And so forget travel. I couldn't even like go to our backyard. And so, yeah, so breath was my way to sort of, close my eyes and go inward and find space within me. And it's also a way to de-stress and calm because yeah, we're all getting these news bites throughout the day and we're scrolling our feeds. And it just takes, one of those sound bites to shift your energy. And so it is a roller coaster every single day right now. And that's where breath comes in to realize, okay, that one just hit me in the gut. Now we can't do this and we're limited with that. And this just closed again. And so it's up to us to then say, like, okay, this is how I'm going to respond versus react. And you just gather yourself for 90 seconds with some breath because fear and uncertainty, it limits everything. It limits your mindset. It limits your posture changes and breath can expand everything. And it also, with breath, you can shift your mindset, you can shift your perspective. And guess what? We all need to create new opportunities during this difficult time. And we need to sort of pivot and make changes and figure out, how am I going to monetize? I used to count on going to conferences and doing what I do in live groups or, whatever it may be. I'm like you. I've always worked from home. I love working from home. And as a mom, I've always appreciated being at home and working. My kids are now older, 22 and 24. And so I was just starting to really love traveling more and doing conferences all over. And that all of a sudden came to a screeching halt. So, I was able to pivot and do a lot of virtual breath workshops and everything, which is lovely. Not the same, but
Right.
it's okay, plan B. But I think it is an opportunity for us now to also, you know, think about what are the silver linings of this time. We all were probably running too quickly, probably not taking time to spend quality time with our family or loved ones, or there was this level of busyness that was crazy. And so I believe that there will be some silver linings to all of this in the end. So in the meantime, that's something to think about, is what will your future look like? What changes from this time do you want to take with you? And maybe breath is one of those things that can help you to create this new normal. And it can help you to, go inward and see yourself and get back in touch with yourself and think about what you really want to move forward with. And there's so many opportunities and things that it's up to us to create in this environment.
Yeah, for sure. Sandy, your silver lining perspective is so spot on. As you were talking about it, I was thinking about how many people, because of this COVID isolation in a way, have now taken the time to start listening to podcasts, have decided to start reading more and all that slowing down effect. So there definitely is a silver lining to this. There's no doubt. And I encourage everybody that's listening to take advantage of what Sandy is saying here and continue to look for those silver linings. There's no doubt. Sandy, something else I want to mention to you right now too is, there's so many people, and you have senior leaders and they have like recommended reading list, and, people on LinkedIn take pictures of their bookcase and they proudly show the 42 million business books that are on there, or the 1,000 books on leadership. They're all there, right? And guess what? I'm looking over right now, even as we speak, to my bookshelf, and it's filled with leadership books. It's what I do, and all of those kind of things. But I will tell you this: as of today, I will include your book on breath as a part of a must-read leadership reading list. It is that important. And I think that your book has nailed exactly what every leader needs to learn, just as much as any B school would teach them.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
That's a true fact. And you see my next readers list, and you're going to be on there for sure. So awesome. Sandy, we were talking in the green room before we started to record, and you've got something pretty interesting coming up soon. You've got a 3-week sabbatical that is going to be a pretty amazing time. Can you spend a few seconds talking about that?
Yes, thank you. Speaking of sort of creating an opportunity, I read about the Global Wellness Institute had written about trends, and they mentioned a wellness sabbatical. And I thought, well, what's that? And what it is it's working remotely for an extended period of time. And so you focus on both work and wellness. And so I reached out to a company that I have worked with a couple times, Canyon Ranch, and I've shared my Breathe workshops with their guests before. And I asked them, have you ever heard of this wellness sabbatical? This is what I'm thinking about doing. And they loved the idea. So in partnership with Canyon Ranch Tucson, I'll be there in October for 3 weeks. I'll be sharing my breath workshops with their guests. And I'll also be indulging in the services that they offer and being outdoors in a lot of nature. Like 90% of my time will be spent probably just walking around the property. And so I'm curious about, what I can create, because as I mentioned, once the borders open and we're allowed to get out and travel and do conferences again, I am interested in this idea of, now that we all know how to work remotely, what could this look like? What if I did a wellness sabbatical twice a year for a month at a time? And I can do all of my virtual workshops while also focusing on new ways to feel good and feel well, and look at all the new innovations in wellness that are coming from this specific time. And so I'm excited to see what those weeks look like, and then to share the conversation with other people of saying, do you think you could do that? Here's what it looks like. Here's one way that I did it, but I think there's going to be a lot of other ways that people can do that.
Well, I think we're all jealous of you for 3 weeks at Canyon Ranch. That's not a bad gig in anybody's book. Super jealous of that. Super jealous of being out in the environment almost the majority of the day. But you are onto something, Sandy, about how the hurdle of resistance is pretty low now when we talk about remote working. It was almost a dirty word, or it was the grand unknown. Now that the vast majority of the population has experienced this, they now realize the amount of freedom and duality that they can do at events like what you could do for these sabbaticals. I think it's a fantastic idea. And personally, looking forward to kind of watching your experience yourself at Canyon Ranch, and then seeing what you have as an additional aha moment as a serial entrepreneur, to see what you offer in the future. It's going to be cool.
Thank you
that's
so
for
much.
sure.
And I don't say that to make you or anyone jealous. I say it just to share the idea that you can create these new opportunities during this time. This was something
so true.
They haven't done this before either. So this is an opportunity for you to create something new that feeds your soul, whatever that looks like. So that's why I share these things, is to
touche. Good clarifying point, Sandy, but it's still not going to stop the level of jealousy. I'm sorry. But yes, thank you for that foot stomp.
Okay.
So Sandy, thank you. Thank you for this time that you have spent with us. This has been energizing for me, I think, along with everybody that's listening to it. Eye-opening that a simple single word, breath, can mean so much and can change so much in people's lives and your organization's life, for that matter, if you get your team to start to focus on it. So I'd love to leave you with the last word to our audience. Anything that you'd like to just leave us with. And again, thank you so much for spending this time with us.
Thank you, Jim. It's been an honor and a pleasure. And yes, I would love to leave your community with this one thought, that just to remember that breath transforms energy in small moments. You don't need to master the art of stillness or reserve chunks of time. You can literally stop for a moment, close your eyes, and take 3 deep breaths. And I just encourage people to do that and to repeat often during these challenging times and times of uncertainty and fear and stress. There's a way to nourish yourself without having to pay for a class or download an app. This is a resource for your nourishment and well-being that is all you need. You've got everything you need within you. And so just tap into it in small moments.
I'm empowered. Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Take care. Thanks. Thanks for joining our leadership movement this week. Talking to Sandy about the power of breath reminds us of how even the simplest things can change your life. Don't forget our show notes are posted on the website with key leader takeaways, and join our Facebook group to get even more behind the scenes action. Until next time, remember that iron sharpens iron. Make yourself and others around you better every single day.